building a computer. Well, actually, basically, we're just going to build a computer. We'll see what happens. Triangle to triangle. Now I got my CPU in. I'm gonna push it down. Didn't like the way it looked. It's ugly. It looked like it came out of 1995. Painted it black. These are such a pain to install. Alright, what's up? So we're gonna do a hopefully really quick video today, building a computer. Well, actually, basically, we're just going to build a computer. I have this motherboard and CPU, Gigabytes P450M DS3H motherboard, AM4, so that's Ryzen. So going into this system, I'm gonna be using this CPU here. It's a fairly old CPU. It's an AMD Ryzen 5 1400, I believe. I'm gonna be having 8 gigabytes of 2666 RAM. Overall, this is a kind of just like an afterthought build. Extra parts lying around, you know, thrown in a 250 gigabyte Western Digital Blue NVMe SSD. And of course, you gotta have a GPU. This is the NVIDIA GTX 660 Ti. Fairly old graphics card, Facebook Marketplace for like 40 bucks, I wanna say. And then the power supply is this guy over here. EVGA model, 500 watts. Nothing special, just got off Newegg for like 3 bucks. It's been sitting for a while. And then it's going into like some generic computer case. So when you're building a computer, there are some tools that you're gonna need. Primarily one of these, screwdriver. For the most part, that's actually basically all you need. It's nice if you have one of these guys. This is a kit that's got all the screws that are specific to computers. Motherboard standoffs, I already have those. CPU screws, fan screws, things like that. Ideally, you might want to have some zip ties to do some cable management. But other than that, that's really all you need to build a computer. So with that, let's get started. Let's go. I know on some videos you're gonna hear you gotta ground yourself, make sure you get rid of all that static electricity. Not too worried about it, modern components, pretty resilient. I'm not on carpet anyway, not super worried about static. We'll see what happens. So we're gonna start off by putting in the CPU. So the thing with the Ryzen chips, and when you take out the chip, you wanna be really careful. There's a lot of pins here, so you don't wanna bend it, so don't drop it. And you don't really wanna touch them either. So you're gonna notice that there's gonna be a little triangle here on the lower left corner here. And if you'll look on this chip here, there's actually a corresponding triangle down here. So basically, triangle to triangle. You want to pick up this chip without touching the pins on the bottom ideally. And then you just want to line it up and more or less drop it in. It drops right in. And then you take this guy right here, which you had lifted up. I probably forgot to mention that. It's got this lever here. It's like a handbrake. When you want to open it up, you pull it up. Now I got my CPU in, I'm going to push it down. And then it's got a little latch here, or notch. Just want to move it to the side. CPU has now been installed. Next I want to do here is the RAM. So RAM slots are here. So almost all modern computers are going to have what they call dual channel memory. So what that means is you have 2 channels of memory. Channel 1, Channel 2, or Channel A, Channel B. So for the best performance, you always want to be utilizing those 2 channels. Think of it as a road. Single channel, single road. You know, everyone's got to go in a single file line. That's your data. If you have 2 roads, dual channel, 2 roads going in the same direction, you can essentially double the amount of traffic, the amount of data going down that road. So you always want to be using dual channel. And so essentially the way they set it up is every other slot is essentially Channel A, and then the other one is Channel B. So this gray slot here and this gray slot here, that's going to be Channel 1, Channel 2. And then this black slot, that's going to be Channel 1, Channel 2. So ideally, you want to make sure you're utilizing both channels. You want to make sure both roads are open. So I'm going to stick a RAM slot here in 1 and then 2. That's going to give me my dual channel performance. So some slots will have 2 of these, notches here that will open up. Some slots will only have it on one side. Otherwise, you just make sure you line up. There's a little notch here, and you just want to make sure it matches with the notch down here. So, see if I put it here, it doesn't match up anymore. Just a little bit off, about a centimeter off. We match it, then we just drop the RAM in, push it in on both sides. Click, click. I'm gonna put this one in the other gray slot, which is not right next to it. Click, click, simple. So now the next thing I want to do, I actually want to install my storage device. I actually already have an OS on this. This is a NVMe flash drive. This is my slot for the NVMe drive right here, M.2 format, but I have the screw in here. So I'm going to take the screw out. And one thing to note is sometimes this spacer will not be there, and you definitely need that spacer because otherwise the drive might not be matching up correctly. NVMe flash drive, I'm gonna slot it in right there. Make sure you're using a drive that's compatible. Some older systems might only support what's called SATA, whereas newer systems will more likely to not support NVMe. I don't know if there are systems that only support NVMe. I mean, it's possible, but yeah. That just screws down. Storage drive with Microsoft Windows is now installed. The last thing I want to do before I move this whole motherboard into the case is install the coolers. So this is a Wraith Prism cooler. Installing these CPU coolers is not crazy hard, but it's definitely not like the easiest thing in life. So the way this thing works, there's 2 points that mount. So this is one mounting point right here. It hooks up into this plastic piece down here, and then this is the other one, and it hooks into this side over here. And then together, they kind of cinch down the CPU cooler. I already cleaned these, rubbing alcohol, so what I'm gonna do now is get my thermal paste, which I put over here. So, a system like this, I'm not too worried about the thermal paste. I'm just gonna put some. I'm just gonna use the rice method. So like, just a little dab here in the middle, maybe a little bit more, just to make sure we get good coverage. And that's really all you need. A little more probably would be fine, but, and then so for this, the key with this Ryzen system is you gotta latch one of them. And then you kind of just, so I latched that side, and then you kind of just gotta go smoothly as possible and latch it into the other side, which we did there. And I will actually kind of like do that to kind of spread out the thermal paste. Then you just cinch it down with the switch right here. You got another handbrake. Do a drift. Boom. Cooler is installed, secure, and since we're already here, I'm going to install the CPU fan, which actually is right here. So CPU fan goes into the CPU fan header on the motherboard, which will give us direct control over it in the BIOS and allow the computer to control this fan based off of the temperature. So the hotter it runs, the faster this fan will spin per the computer, per Microsoft Windows, whatever it thinks is going on. So essentially that's it for our motherboard, and we are actually ready to install the motherboard into the case. What's nice is you can literally use it as a carrying handle. It's safe to do this. We do this all the time. This is the case that I'm gonna be using. So it's a really basic case. I actually painted it black. This case should be exposed bare metal. Didn't like the way it looked. It was ugly. It looked like it came out of 1995. Painted it black. So I'm actually gonna install my power supply first. If I don't install my power supply first, it's gonna be a pain to install it afterwards. One of the big things about building a computer, it's all about the order of operations. Sometimes you'll install a piece that literally makes it impossible to install another piece. So you always want to make sure you install the pieces in the right order, which in this case, I do want to install the power supply first. So I did some basic cable management on this power supply already. Notice I kind of taped it off here because I kind of modified this case because this case is not really built for, cable management. I mean, it's like I said, it's an old case. So. There is a fan on your power supply, so make sure that you put the fan in the correct orientation. There's no way to get air here, so I'm gonna put the fan facing the inside. So I'm just gonna pop it in there. I know I just painted this case, it looks nice, and I'm ruining it by installing this power supply. It's all good. Actually, I'm gonna lift this, it'll make it easier for me. Come on. Alright, power supply more or less installed. I made this cutout here to kind of route cables, otherwise it'd be routing here in the back, but I'd never be able to get the side panel back on. By making this cutout here, I could route the the cables here where there's a little bit of a indent, so I can actually route the cables there. And kind of the good thing about painting this case is it smoothed that thing out, because this thing is sharp when you use a Dremel on it. I could have routed this over here when I installed the motherboard, the power supply, but I didn't. It is what it is. It's going to be a little bit messy over there. This case got no window. You're never going to see it anyway. So, all right. So installing your motherboard, just pop it in there, screw it in, right? Wrong. So one of the biggest mistakes, and yes, I have made this myself, is I didn't install this, the I/O shield, or as some people like to call it, they call it a brace for some odd reason. This is an I/O shield, and basically it protects the back of the motherboard so that it's not just exposed. You have to install this before you put the motherboard into the tray. All right, it's a very flimsy one. It's in, so check it out. Right there, I/O shield is installed, ready to go. So yeah, let's just bring in the motherboard here. Room to maneuver here. Okay, and basically you just need to line up the holes with these I/O ports here. Your mileage may vary as to how easy or not easy it is. Some motherboards are an absolute pain. Motherboard is more or less seated here. Now I just got to screw it in. So installing the motherboard and other screws, that's when it's going to be nice to have a magnetic tipped screwdriver. I'm going to find a, what do you call it? One of these standoffs, motherboard standoffs. I'm just going to start installing this motherboard. So I don't want to go all the way down on everyone. I want to get a couple of them in to make sure everything is aligned correctly. Motherboard is installed, SSD is installed, RAM is installed, cooler is installed. What we got to do now, connect the power. Depending on your CPU and your motherboard, it'll either utilize 12 volt 4-pin connector or 12 volt 8-pin connector. In this case, it is an 8 volt. And actually some of them now use, 12 volts. So they'll have these two guys connected into one, and then it'll have a separate one. See, now I'm kind of wishing I hadn't installed the CPU cooler because it's in the way of that. But kind of pick and choose your battles here. True. Motherboard wiring is one of the worst parts about building a computer. Okay, I'm just gonna do one at a time. Okay, that's what I just installed right there. Pain indeed. Anyway, so now we got our CPU 12-pin power installed. Now I need to get my 24-pin power, 24 power pin connector, and it goes right here. I'm going to install this guy first. I know for a fact that guy goes underneath. It went the other way. Then this guy. Go down. 24-pin power is connected. And now, installing the frickin' these guys. I don't understand why these tiny little pieces of crap right here, this remains the best option for front panel connectors. These are such a pain to install. Basically, you gotta install them onto these tiny, see these guys? I gotta get these guys onto these guys. They're essentially like pins. Let's go for it. All right, that one's good. Then I got power switch. And then I got a reset button. Reset button's right next to power LED or HDD LED. So I'm actually gonna put these two right next to each other and see if we can install them at the same exact time. Boom. Now power switch. Ah, it's the one right there. Hold on. Okay, well, that's probably the smoothest that it's ever gone for me, so nice. So now we want to install our GPU, GTX 660 Ti. Is it powerful? Not by today's standards, but hey, it's gonna work. It works great, actually. So this is a PCIe graphics card. You always want to make sure that you use your top slots for the PCIe, unless your motherboard tells you otherwise. because this is going to typically be your fastest, highest bandwidth PCIe connector. And so you literally just pop it in. There's a little notch here on the card, and there's a notch down here. Just match them up and put them in. GPU installed. For a GPU like this, which back in the day was actually fairly powerful, mid-level, it does actually require external power. It can't draw enough power just from this slot here in the motherboard. So in this case, it requires two 6-pin PCIe connectors. So hopefully you have a motherboard that supports that. It's got it right here. Not the most ideal setup. It's got both of them on a single. Plug it in here. Here. That's basically it. All right, so in the case of this computer, I have a fan and I have, what do you call it? An LED light that is connected really awkwardly. They both use Molex connectors. So that guy is gonna plug into that guy. And this is one of the reasons why we hate Molex. The pins inside actually move around. Sometimes it does make it quite difficult to connect them, but it's all good. Boom, we're good. The cable management is not ideal, but it is functional. This guy. I think I could deal with it being back here though. Cinch it up here. That'll be fine. We're just gonna hide it over here. I mean, and you know, that's basically a completed computer right there. Everything's gonna work except for the USB front panel connectors. I took the wires off. I have no clue where they are right now. Luckily, I don't need them. But yeah, that is a completed system. We got our RAM, got our motherboard, got our GPU, cooler, and all the wiring. This computer used to have a cage down here for hard drives. Took a Dremel to that, took that out. There's some rivets, popped them out. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to have this intake fan here. But because I got rid of that, that was an area where I was using before to hide the wires. When I got rid of that, then you could see all the wires here. But you know, I made them all black, so you can't really see them, especially when you put the side panel on over here. So it's not gonna be really a big issue. I mean, and there's no side panel window on here, so you're not gonna see it anyway. Alrighty, here we go. Let's see if it boots. There you go. Little computer running. But yeah, how to build a computer, more or less the basics. As you can see, we got a functional computer here now. That's really all I wanted to do. Go ahead and get these side panels on. All right. Well, you know, let's see how the acoustic performance is with the side panels on. Quiet. And with that, we are good to go. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and shut it down. All right, and that's basically it. That's all we got for today. With that, catch you all on the flip.